All right, so get this. Today we're going deep, really deep into the evidences for, well, the existence of God.
Yeah, some seriously heavy stuff.
We're looking at this text just straight up called The Evidences of the Existence of God.
And let me tell you, it leans pretty hard on, like, biblical passages and philosophical arguments and all that.
No, before you think we're about to, preach at you or something.
Yeah.
This is more about, like, unpacking these arguments.
Yeah.
Not telling you what to believe.
Exactly. Think of it more as a guided tour.
Yeah.
Through some seriously compelling and, like, thought-provoking arguments that have shaped, well, human history, really.
Okay, so this text, it jumps right in with this idea of evidence from creation.
Oh, yeah. Better known in, like, philosophical circles as the cosmological argument.
Right. Now, you've probably heard that analogy, finding a watch in the desert.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
The intricate design, it kind of implies there's a watchmaker, right?
Right.
So this argument, it basically applies that same logic to the whole universe.
The whole shebang.
Like it had a beginning and something must have caused it.
It's fascinating, this
Yeah.
whole concept of an uncaused first cause. It really, like, pushes the boundaries of what we even understand. It forces us to kind of grapple with the limits of our scientific models and to consider, like, the possibility of, well, a realm beyond the laws of physics as we get them now.
So it's not just about saying, like, God did it and calling it a day.
No, not at all.
It's about looking at, like, the very foundation of how we understand cause and effect.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this idea is even echoed in Psalm 19.1.
Right.
Which states, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands." It kind of speaks to this deep human instinct we have to see purpose and, like, design in everything around us,
Yeah, I think we all have those moments, right, where we look up at the night sky.
Oh, for sure.
And you just feel this sense of awe,
Yeah.
It's almost impossible not to wonder, like, how did all this come to be?
Exactly. That sense of wonder is, it's at the heart of this whole exploration, really.
Okay, let's move on to the evidence from design.
Right. Also known as the teleological argument.
Yeah, and this one really gets into, like, the nitty-gritty of how incredibly fine-tuned the universe seems to be.
Yeah.
We're talking about things like the force of gravity, the Earth's perfect distance from the sun.
Oh, and don't forget the
the
mind-boggling complexity of DNA.
Oh, yeah. All these things, they just seem so perfectly, like, calibrated for life to even exist.
It's like, you stumble upon this highly complex machine, perfectly assembled and just, like, functioning flawlessly. And the teleological argument, it suggests that this level of intricate design, it has to point towards something, right? Intentionality, a conscious mind behind the blueprint, if you will.
But couldn't you argue that, like, these apparent fine-tuned conditions, couldn't they just be the result of, random chance? I mean, given enough time and, like, enough universes, wouldn't it be statistically possible for these conditions to just arise eventually?
Well, that's a common counter-argument for sure.
Yeah.
And it brings up this whole concept of the multiverse.
Right.
The idea that our universe is just one of many.
Right. Right.
However, the multiverse theory, it's still highly speculative. We don't have any direct evidence to actually support it.
So we're back to that question then, right? Of what seems more plausible,
Yeah.
like a universe that's designed for life, or an infinite number of universes where we just happen to be in the lucky one.
And that's a question each individual has to really wrestle with. The text even quotes Romans 1:20, which states, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse."
Okay.
This suggests that the evidence for a creator is, well, it's readily apparent in the natural world.
Oh, okay. Let's shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
To the evidence for morality.
Oh, yeah. Or the moral argument.
Right. This
Sure.
one always sparks a lot of debate. It essentially boils down to the idea that that objective right and wrong, it has to come from somewhere.
Right.
So if there's no God, where does this, like, sense of morality come
Yeah,
from?
exactly.
Yeah.
The moral argument, it postulates that if there's no, like, ultimate moral lawgiver out there, then morality, well, it becomes subjective, you see.
Mm.
Simply a matter of personal preference or cultural norms.
Mm-hmm.
And this raises questions about the very foundations of justice and human rights.
But couldn't you argue that that morality just evolved, like, as a survival mechanism?
Oh, sure.
Like societies that cooperated and treated each other fairly, they were more likely to thrive, right? So those moral codes, they just kind of got passed down through, generations.
That's a valid point. Absolutely. Evolutionary psychology, it certainly offers some insights into how social behavior develops.
Yeah.
However, the moral argument, it asks whether those evolutionary advantages, can they really fully account for that sense of absolute right and wrong that a lot of people experience? Could our sense of justice truly be reduced to, well, a mere biological imperative?
So even if we can explain the evolutionary origins of, like, certain moral behaviors, the question remains, like, is there something more, a deeper source for, objective morality?
And that question, well, it's been pondered by philosophers for centuries.
Yes.
The text even references Romans 2.1415, which states, "Indeed, when Gentiles, who do not have the law, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves. Even though they do not have the law, they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts."
So it's suggesting that this moral law, it's not, like, imposed from outside, but rather something, like, inherent within us.
That's one interpretation. It speaks to the possibility of, well, a universal moral compass, a sense of right and wrong that transcends cultural boundaries and personal beliefs.
Now that's a concept worth pondering, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it leads us to to our next evidence.
Okay, so we've gone through some pretty, heady philosophical arguments, but maybe let's get a little more, I don't know, personal. The next evidence in this text is evidence from human experience and consciousness. And it's all about that, like that deep-seated human need for meaning and purpose. Like, why are we here? What's it all about? It's like these questions have been, like, haunting humanity since, well, forever, right?
Yeah, that's right. And this particular evidence, it focuses on the idea that humans are, like, wired for something more than just the material world.
Right.
We have this innate yearning for something beyond ourselves, something transcendent.
It's like we're constantly searching, right, for something to fill this void within us.
Yeah.
And the text, it highlights the countless ways that people throughout history have reported encountering the divine through prayer, miracles, near-death experiences, moments of just, like, intense spiritual connection. These experiences, regardless of, one's personal beliefs, they all point to, like, a dimension of human existence that goes beyond the purely physical.
What's really fascinating here is the sheer diversity of these experiences. They span, cultures, time periods, religious traditions, yet there are often, like, striking similarities in the way people describe them. Feelings of overwhelming love, peace, interconnectedness, a sense of encountering a higher power, or ultimate reality.
Okay, but couldn't some of these experiences, couldn't they be explained by, like, psychology or neurology?
Oh, of course.
Like, our brains are capable of creating some pretty, wild illusions.
Right, absolutely. And it's crucial to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That personal experiences, they can be, influenced by a multitude of factors: cultural conditioning, psychological states, even things like, sleep deprivation or certain medications.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even if we can explain the biological mechanisms behind these experiences,
right,
it doesn't necessarily negate their significance or their potential to point towards something beyond ourselves, really.
So it's like acknowledging that the brain is the instrument, but the music it's playing, it might be coming from somewhere else.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
The text even references Ecclesiastes 3.01, which states, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart."
I love that quote. It really speaks to this longing we have for something beyond, the finite, the temporal.
Yeah.
It's like we're hardwired for eternity, even though our minds can barely even grasp the concept.
Precisely. And this yearning for something more, this sense of the the divine within us. It's been a driving force, really, in art, literature, music, philosophy, throughout human history, you know?
Makes you wonder if this yearning is actually a kind of evidence in itself, like a signpost pointing us towards something that transcends our current understanding.
It's a question worth pondering, for sure. And it leads us to the final evidence presented in the text, which focuses specifically on Christianity.
Right. Evidence from Jesus Christ and the Bible.
Right.
Now I know this one might feel a bit, I don't know, more exclusive than the others, but
Sure.
it's important to remember that Christianity, it's played a massive role in, shaping Western culture.
Oh, yeah.
And it continues to be like a major influence in the lives of, well, billions of people worldwide. So whether or not you personally, subscribe to the Christian faith, understanding its core tenets, its claims, it's crucial for, grappling with this whole question of God's existence.
Absolutely. And for Christians, well, Jesus is seen as the ultimate revelation of God, really.
Yeah.
His teachings, the miracles attributed to him, and the belief in his resurrection, they form the cornerstone of their faith.
The text even highlights John 1:14, which says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us."
Yeah, this verse, it encapsulates the Christian belief that God literally took on human form in the person of Jesus.
And for those who hold this belief, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus,
Right.
They provide the most compelling evidence for God's existence and his love for humanity.
For sure.
Okay, so let's just put aside, the theological interpretations for a second.
Yeah.
And look at this from a historical perspective.
Okay.
Even if we don't accept the divine claims, there's no denying that Jesus was a real historical figure who had like a profound impact on the world.
Oh, yeah.
His teachings, they inspired a movement that spread like wildfire and continues to influence billions of lives even today.
Exactly. And whether you view him as as a prophet, a revolutionary, or a divine being, the historical impact of Jesus, it's undeniable. Yeah. He changed the course of history. And his teachings continue to spark debate and inspire social change even today.
All right, so we've covered those 5 main evidences presented in the text, ranging from, philosophical arguments to personal experiences to the specific claims of Christianity.
Right.
But I'm guessing this is just, the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, absolutely. We've only scratched the surface. There are countless other perspectives, arguments, interpretations out there.
Yeah.
This question of God's existence, it's been debated for, millennia, really. And it's likely to continue to spark passionate discussion and inquiry for centuries to come.
And that's what makes this whole exploration so fascinating. It's a journey, not a destination.
For sure.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Exactly. It's about, engaging with the mystery, being willing to wrestle with these difficult questions, and being open to different perspectives.
So where do we go from here? I mean, we've talked about the evidence, but at the end of the day, it seems like this question ultimately comes down to like faith, intuition, personal experience.
To a certain extent, yes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can approach this question with, intellectual rigor and critical thinking.
Okay, so how do we strike that balance? How do we reconcile those subjective experiences that people report with the more objective lens of of science and reason?
That's a question we'll dive into in part 3. Stay with us.
Welcome back. So we're in the final part of our deep dive into these evidences for God's existence.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
We've covered a lot, from the cosmological argument to like personal experiences, but let's tackle the elephant in the room. How do we reconcile those powerful, often, almost mystical experiences that people report with what science tells us about the world?
Right. It's a question that's, perplexed thinkers for ages, really. On one hand, you've got these profound subjective encounters, right? Miracles, near-death experiences, those overwhelming feelings of love and connection.
Yeah.
And then on the other, you've got the scientific method with its emphasis on, objectivity, testability,
Yeah.
repeatable results.
It can feel like trying to fit square pegs into round holes, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
So how do we bridge this gap? Is it even possible?
Well, I think the first step is recognizing that science and spirituality, they're not necessarily at odds. You know, they're simply different lenses
Yeah.
through which we view reality. Science excels at explaining the physical world,
Right.
while spirituality grapples with those questions of meaning, purpose, the transcendent.
So it's not about like choosing one over the other, but finding a way to integrate both perspectives.
Exactly. Think of it like this, right? Science can explain the mechanics of a piano, the strings, the hammers, the sound waves, but it can't fully capture the beauty of the music, the emotions it evokes, the way it connects with our souls.
That's a beautiful analogy. So when it comes to those personal experiences that people attribute to, divine intervention, how can we approach them from both a scientific and a spiritual perspective?
Well, let's take near-death experiences, for example. Science has shown that the feeling of leaving one's body, seeing a bright light, experiencing a sense of peace, these can be triggered by physiological changes in the brain during times of extreme stress or trauma.
But what about the content of those experiences? People often report encountering, deceased loved ones or a being of light that they interpret as God. Science can't explain that, right?
Not yet, anyway. The realm of human consciousness is still largely a mystery to us. We're just beginning to understand, how the brain creates our subjective experiences and what role they play in our survival, our evolution.
So there's room for both scientific explanations and the possibility that these experiences are tapping into something beyond our current understanding.
Absolutely. It's like exploring a vast uncharted territory. We have our scientific maps, our compasses, but we also need to be open to the possibility of encountering things that challenge our existing paradigms.
That's what makes this whole exploration so exciting, right? It's a journey of discovery, and the answers might not always be neat and tidy.
Exactly, and at the end of the day, the question of God's existence it's deeply personal. There's no scientific experiment or philosophical argument that's going to definitively prove or disprove the existence of a higher power. It ultimately comes down to faith, intuition, personal experience.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the key is to approach this question with an open mind and a curious heart. Explore the arguments, engage with different perspectives, but also be willing to listen to your own inner voice, your own experiences of awe, wonder, connection.
And remember, the search for meaning, it's an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Right.
We may never have all the answers, but the process of seeking, questioning, exploring, that's what makes life so rich and fulfilling.
Beautifully said. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for something greater than ourselves isn't found in ancient texts or scientific formulas, but in the depths of our own hearts and that innate yearning for love, connection, transcendence.
And on that note, we wrap up this deep dive. Keep those minds curious, keep those hearts open, and keep exploring the mysteries of existence. Until next time.